Hi, I'm Lillian. Welcome to my reading vlog. The first one of the prompts I'm going to do for this readathon is the one for the Taylor Swift album, which is to post about your book on Instagram. So I am about to go on a walk with my friend Daisy, so I'm going to take probably This Is How You Lose the Time War along with me and try and find like a nice floral, blossomy background to take a photo with. I just finished my first read of the readathon, which was This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal Motar. And I'm actually also, I've read this for the Buzzwordathon challenge, which I'm doing all of this year. So a separate vlog with a lot more of my thoughts during the reading process is already up. But I will tell you now, I really liked it. I'm giving it 4 stars. It's this sci-fi novella, it's very short, about 2 agents on opposite sides of the time war who time travel to try and give their side an advantage through like a series of butterfly effects and small changes down different time streams. And while I think a lot of people will be most interested in the relationship between these 2 characters, I was mostly in it for the sci-fi weirdness. The 2 protagonists enter a correspondence with each other and send each other a series of letters in increasingly weird science fiction ways, and that was really what I was most interested in. I loved all the different science fiction elements to this. I loved the talk of their home cultures, the agency and garden. I loved all the talk of the different timelines, which they call threads, and they talk about braiding them in some ways to give them an advantage, and they call time traveling like going up thread and down thread. And I loved hearing about the different places they went to, and yeah, all of those sci-fi elements were really what grabbed me and what sucked me in. And the writing as well is so beautiful and poetic in a way that I didn't really expect for a science fiction novel, but it was so gorgeous. The one thing I have to say about that is I don't exactly know how the 2 authors like divided it. I thought maybe like one will write from Red's point of view and one will write from Blue's point of view. Those are the 2 main characters. But actually the writing felt pretty consistent, like throughout all of it. There wasn't an obvious difference between those characters. So I'm actually not sure how they ended up splitting it. But the similarity in writing kind of meant that if I hadn't been told at the beginning of each chapter whether it was like Red or Blue we were following, I wouldn't have really been able to tell. So that was like the one thing that I think fell short for me. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I actually wish it had been slightly longer. I think this is like 200 pages or 199 exactly or something like that. And while I don't wish it was like, you know, a full length novel, I think it works well being a novella. I kind of wish it was like 250 pages, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I can see why everyone recommends it, and I would do the same. It was really good. So the next prompt I'm going to do is for Folklore, which is to wear a cozy outfit and take a cozy photo. I'm going to be attempting to recreate the front cover of Evermore with like putting my hair in a braid and like taking a photo against some trees. I have a jacket which I ordered off M&S. It's actually very ugly and I'm going to be returning it, but I figured in the meantime I could use it for a photo because it's not like the same colour, but like the checkered pattern is kind of similar to the coats that she wears for Folklore and Evermore. So I thought wearing it from the back could kind of match. So my sister's going to help me do my braid properly, and then I'm going to go into the garden and she's going to help me take a photo. So this is what it looks like. It looked nice on the website. It's just very, you know, I did like a grey rectangle in it. You can't really see, but we're gonna put my hair in a braid, do the album cover. prompt, I ended up picking Home Before Dark by Riley Sager using a random number generator. This is actually the second one of his books I've read. I first read Lock Every Door last April for the Owls Readathon, and I really liked that one, and I ended up liking this one even more. Now, when I describe the synopsis to you, it will sound like a blatant rip-off of the TV adaptation of The Haunting of Hill House, and to be honest, that would be a fair assumption to make. It's a very, very similar premise. Basically, this book is about a woman called Maggie who, when she was a child, I think she was about 5 years old, her and her parents moved into this big fancy house called Bainbury Hall, and within about a month of moving in, they fled in the middle of the night, scared out of their wits, and then her dad went on to write a book about how the hall was haunted and like their experiences with the ghosts or the haunting, and it became like a worldwide bestseller, became this big urban legend, and so Maggie has had to live with that legacy like pretty much throughout all her life because she's like a major character in the book. And then as an adult she goes back to the hall to kind of try and work out exactly what happened there because she doesn't believe that it was haunted. And this is a contemporary thriller, so there are no paranormal aspects unlike The Haunting of Hill House, but I thought even though it has a very similar premise, it did its own thing, and I really liked it for what it was. And that was, I think I just love haunted houses. I didn't think this was like a trope or genre of book that I was particularly interested in, but I read The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware last year, which I didn't end up liking that much, mostly because of the ending, but like the build up, it is set in a house and all these creepy things are happening and you're thinking like, is it haunted? Like what exactly is going on there? And specifically, I think I like the haunted house trope when you know it's not actually haunted. You know there's some like creep behind everything and you know the explanation is going to be like non-paranormal. I think I'm so down for that, and I absolutely loved all of those aspects in this book. It was so creepy. The build up, the tension, like basically everything that happened I was so into. The book is told with two timelines, so we have Maggie as an adult going back to the house and what happens to her and the things she tries to discover, and then we also have chapters of her dad's book sort of telling his version of events from when she was a little kid. And I loved how these two timelines work together. I love how like little elements you'd see in both sides, so like one creepy thing that happened in his book you'd see happening to Maggie and you'd be like, oh, it's happening again. It was really exciting. It was always creepy, there was always something happening. I had like all these theories about what would end up being the truth, and I think I guessed like some of it correctly, some of it I did not. I fell for quite a big red herring in the book, which actually ended up being quite fun, and I enjoyed being proven wrong. So overall, yeah, big success, and I now need to go and read some more books about haunted houses. So this prompt is to match a book to an outfit or dress, and I want to get this done quickly because I'm running out of time in the month. So I think what I'm going to do is just pull out some dresses from my cupboard and see if I can match a book to them, maybe one book, but maybe like multiple ones, if I can get the spines to match the colours of the outfit. And then I've got a vague idea about making a flat lay with them and trying to take some Bookstagram photos, but we'll just see how it goes. I'll be honest, I think I've nailed this on the first attempt, so I'm very happy with how this has turned out. So I found my first dud of this month. Is that too harsh? No, I really didn't like this book. It wasn't the one for me. I read American Royals by Catherine McGee, and it just didn't work. It wasn't for me, absolutely not. The one positive thing I can say about this book is that it was fast-paced, and you know, there was never a shortage of like things happening. It's just that the things that happened were often shallow and stupid and juvenile and just rubbish, basically. I read an ebook of this, but in real life it's over 400 pages long, this book. God, what a waste of paper. The whole thing is just so like surface level. I think the whole book was just meant for a reader who is more like immature than I am now, and so I just could not enjoy it that much. I just kept finding flaws in the plot and the characters and everything. So this book is set in a world where after the Revolutionary War in America, George Washington becomes the first king of America instead of the first president. So there's like a royal family of America, the Washingtons. And actually that reminds me of actually a second thing I did like. I liked the implication that because America had a monarchy, like other monarchies around the world still existed. So like there were still czars in Russia, and like the French Revolution either never happened, or if it did happen, like they kept their monarchy. And so I liked all these references to like the Russian czars and like lots of other little monarchies that don't exist in our world now. So this book follows four main characters. We have Beatrice, who is the eldest princess, the crown princess. She's going to become the next monarch. Her younger sister Samantha, Samantha's best friend Nina, who like is romantically interested in the Prince Jefferson, and also Jefferson's ex-girlfriend Daphne. And when you have that many main characters, like they're not all gonna hit. Beatrice I quite liked. I liked how her story was a lot about like the pressures of knowing you're gonna be the next monarch. I thought that was kind of interesting. Fell off towards the end, but it was interesting for a bit. I also liked Daphne. She was very like cunning and conniving. She sort of built for a little bit, so I wasn't too keen on her at first, but then by the end I was like, nothing else is interesting is happening, like give me some more of Daphne being sneaky. But Samantha and Nina's storylines were honestly so dull, and really like 98% of the conflict in this book could have been solved if you were just sat down and talked to each other honestly. Like that was literally it. So knowing that fact made the whole thing very, very weak. And finally the ending was not so much a cliffhanger as just the plot stopped and nothing is resolved. Absolutely nothing is resolved. I like had a sneaking suspicion that this was the first book in a series, and like maybe everything I wanted to happen wasn't going to be wrapped up nicely in just this book. But like literally nothing is resolved in this book. It's not even like some things come to an end and then you understand new storylines are going to be appearing in the second book. It's like literally nothing is resolved. And because I knew I wasn't going to go and read the second book because I wasn't a fan of the first one, I did go on to Goodreads and I read a spoiler review, and so I basically know everything that happens in the second book now, and thank goodness I didn't read it because it just sounds dreadful. It sounds even worse than this first one. So yeah, overall, silly and shallow, but fast-paced, but definitely not for me. I think I'm going to give it 2 stars. I think that's generous, but I think that's where I'm at with it. It is now the last Sunday in March, and I've come to the realisation that my TBR for this month was just slightly too ambitious, and I'm definitely not going to read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. So instead I'm doing the non-reading prompt, and I'm going to be doing some calming self-care. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint my nails and monologue a bit about my favourite and least favourite Taylor Swift albums. I've got a candle which I shall now light and try not to set my computer on fire. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to begin with my least favourite Taylor Swift albums. I'm just going to rip off that plaster straight away and say that her first album and her 2 most recent ones, Folklore and Evermore, are tied least favourites. I think I don't like her first album that much because I didn't really listen to it when it came out. I sort of got into her just before Fearless was released, and so I didn't really spend time with it, you know, to appreciate it. It just felt a little bit boring and juvenile, except for possibly Picture to Burn, which I think is my favourite song on that album. And actually I now have a bit of a newfound appreciation for what's it called? Girl in This World. I'm just a girl in the world, trying to find my place in this world. There we go. And then Folklore and Evermore. I mean, absolutely unpopular opinion. I think that those albums are about 45% filler. I think they contain like 5 songs which I think are absolutely dreadful, like actually actively bad. Exile on Folklore was, oh, I've just smudged this immediately. Exile on Folklore was like my least favourite Taylor Swift song of all time until Evermore was released.
and I realised that Coney Island was my least favourite Taylor Swift song of all time. I think if you got rid of half of the songs on Folklore and half of the songs on Evermore and just put them together as one album, it would be solid and it wouldn't be a bad album. Like, it wouldn't be in my least favourite Taylor Swift albums. I think if you took the best half of both and put them together, they'd be really strong. Okay, I think the next least favourite album, and it's like at this point it's positive, like it's my least favourite that I like. I think it might be a tie between Speak Now and Red, because they're both very strong albums. Well, they're quite strong. I just think they're very mixed. I think there's a good number of songs which are like really excellent. I love Treacherous on Red. It's one of my favourite Taylor Swift songs. But there's also so much like random filler on Red which wasn't very good. Speak Now is sort of similar. I would say it has a cohesive vibe in the way that Red doesn't, but it's not as good as her other amazing country album. Fearless, which I think tied with Lover, is probably next on this list. I just was so obsessed with Fearless when it came out. I just absolutely love that album. I think Fearless itself, the song, is honestly top 5 Taylor Swift songs ever. And then tied with Fearless is Lover. I think Lover is a very solid album. I really liked it when it came out, but I do agree with some of the criticisms that it was like 3 songs too long. Annoyingly, I couldn't sit here and tell you which 3 songs should have been cut, because I actually do like them all, but I do... Actually, that's a lie. I would cut probably Me, You Need to Calm Down, and Soon You'll Get Better. I just think Me and You Need to Calm Down are so bland. So I would cut those 3 off Lover, and I think it would be stronger for it. But I love so many of the songs in there. Cruel Summer, I think, is my second favourite Taylor Swift song ever. I also love Death by a Thousand Cuts and Cornelia Street, but that does leave my favourite albums probably tied, because I honestly couldn't pick between them, as 1989 and Reputation. A lot of people are now coming out of the woodwork and saying, oh, Reputation isn't that great of an album, and I'm like, you must be listening to a different album. That album is so strong. Even my least favourite songs on there, which are probably Gorgeous and Delicate, like, I can see their place on the album. I definitely wouldn't cut them if I was like in charge of these things. It's kind of like a concept album, isn't it? Because she came up with the title and the idea for it before she wrote any of the songs. And it's so strong. It's so strong. Absolutely adore it. 1989, I think, is much more varied. I love a lot of the songs on 1989. I think Style is my favourite Taylor Swift song of all time. And so there's a lot of strong songs on there. But also there's quite a few which are just like, meh. So it was more varied, but I think it had higher peaks than Reputation, which had lower average peaks, but was stronger overall. So yeah, okay, I've done one layer, and I've given you my lowdown on Taylor Swift albums. I've also managed to smudge like literally the second nail I did. That's fine. I feel like I've just said quite a lot of negative things even without meaning to, so let's go through and say some of my favourite songs from each album. Okay, so Taylor Swift, I said Picture to Burn, and what was it, Place in This World. I mean, Our Song as well, Teardrops on My Guitar, they're solid songs, you know, as well. So I'm gonna give them my seal of approval as well. Folklore, I think my favourite song is August, possibly tied with Cardigan. And then Evermore, my favourites are Gold Rush, absolutely the peak of that album, really, really great song. I wish I had like one more chorus at the end, but it's fine, I'll allow it. And I also really like Long Story Short, which was a grower. The first time I listened to it, I was walking to work, and so now whenever I listen to it, I think of like that one stretch of road that I was walking down the first time. But I like it. It grew on me, yeah, and now it's one of my favourites. I'm also really obsessed with Right Where You Left Me. Honestly, couldn't get enough of that song. When a couple of extra ones just got released, I listened to it like on repeat for maybe 3 hours. Speak Now, I think my favourite song might be Dear John, but it also might be Haunted, but it also might be Innocent or Enchanted. Okay, there's actually quite a few. Better Than Revenge, which is just such a great song, even though it's kind of slut-shamey. I think she's grown since then as an artist and a person, you know, but you know what? She wrote a great song when she was 19, and I'm grateful still. And Red, like I said, Treacherous is amazing, but then State of Grace and Holy Ground, I think together are just like bookends of the same vibe, and I really like that. I also really like Stay, Stay, Stay and 22 for like They're bops, can't deny it. And Lover, yeah, like I said before, like Cruel Summer, second favourite Taylor Swift song of all time. Cornelia Street, Death by a Thousand Cuts. Lover itself, the song, even I Forgot You Existed. And Paper Rings, I love Paper Rings. And Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince, absolutely amazing. And then yeah, 1989 and Reputation, favourite albums, really, really solid. Reputation, I like Don't Blame Me and Did Something Bad as like, again, they're bookends of the same vibe and I love that. And also Dancing with Our Hands Tied, an underdog, which is probably one of my favourites. And New Year's Day is really, really beautiful, really love that. I watched the Reputation Stadium Tour Netflix film when it came out, and when she sung New Year's Day and Enchanted as like a mashup on the piano, I cried, not just a little bit, quite a lot. And 1989, again, it's so solid, like style, Out of the Woods, I just love it. New Romantics is absolutely incredible. Okay, I'm just finishing up. Ooh, left-handed is not good. But yeah, basically I can say that Taylor Swift is probably my favourite singer of all time, and literally for like the last 3 years, and all my Spotify wrap-ups, she has been the artist I listen to the most often, which was not a surprise on any of those years. And I'm having a good time with this readathon, even though I am behind on my reading, and I'm probably gonna end up finishing 4 of the 6 books I planned. I mean, I'm gonna aim for 5 or even 4.5. Even if I like start a book and don't finish it, I would consider that a success. So yes, I think I've done some nice calming self-care this evening, and also my idea of fun is, you know, carefully and objectively ranking things that I love. So that's also been fun. And I brought my next book in before the coffee gets cold, which I'm going to try and start reading in a second. What time is it? No, I've got time to start reading this tonight. And yeah, just going to see how it goes. Got 3 days left of the month. I'm not too stressed. And I'm hoping for the best. I've just finished my final book of this readathon, and it was Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And unfortunately, I found it quite disappointing. Basically, the first 25% of the book I really didn't click with, and so even though like the latter 3/4 were a lot better and I enjoyed them more, the whole book was kind of soured by how much I didn't like the opening. This is a translated Japanese book about a tiny cafe in Tokyo where if you sit in a specific seat, you are able to travel back in time. And there are all these rules about it, like you have to stay in the seat, you're not allowed to leave, you can only see people who've previously visited the cafe, you can only stay there for a certain amount of time, etc, etc. And it has 4 chapters, and in each one a different character travels in time. And the first character who does that was just so incredibly annoying to me. And so the fact that I didn't really like her, plus I didn't really like how all of these rules about how exactly the time travel operates, I didn't like how they were introduced. It felt so weird. At certain points I was reading it and I was like, are you joking? Like, I don't think it was introduced very well. And you know, the thing was, it did kind of make sense. So once we got over that hurdle of how I didn't like how the rules were introduced to the reader and the other character, the rest of the book, like, it was fine. I found myself like understanding and agreeing with these rules. But just that initial hurdle of literally the first 25%, I really didn't like. And the other characters were nicer, and the other reasons they had to travel in time were sweeter and more emotional, and I did genuinely enjoy them. And it has quite an emotional ending as well, which like wasn't perfect. I didn't love it, it wasn't great, but like I appreciated it and I enjoyed it for what it was. But it was just unfortunately not the book for me. The premise was so intriguing, but it just didn't deliver in a way that I really liked. And the writing itself, like, it's hard to critique because it's translated, so you always have to wonder, was this a choice by the translator or was this a choice by the original author? But one thing I didn't like is how quite often it would sort of repeat things in a way where you're like, I know, I'm not 6, I understood that the first time you said it, and it just felt a little bit like condescending sometimes in a way, and you're like, yes, I know, you just told me that. So overall it was
a bit of a disappointment. I'm gonna give it 2 stars, and I would recommend it to people if you think the premise is interesting and if you've previously read a lot of Japanese literature and you think that my problems with the writing is not something you would have an issue with, then yeah, go for it. It just didn't really work for me. So yeah, that was my last book of this readathon. I've come to realise I'm not going to finish the Speak Now prompt no matter how hard I try. So the only one left to do is the one for 1989, which is to make a cocktail or mocktail. And my plan for this is literally to pour a can of G&T into a glass and then maybe add like a bit of lime or lemon to technically be like, oh yeah, I made this cocktail, even though I bought the can from M&S several weeks ago. But anyway, that is the last challenge I have to do. So I will say now, thank you so much for watching. I've had so much fun this month. This readathon, I've really loved it. I've loved how it was planned. I loved all the prompts and all the activities, and I'm so glad I participated. So I will just see you in my next video. Bye.